We're here today, Andrew Mowat and John Corrigan. John is the founding partner of Group 8 Education. And John, how would you describe the key elements of the Performance Development and Coaching 3.0 program?
Well, the program really is about creating the conditions in a school for every teacher to be more like an outstanding teacher more of the time. So underpinning the program is the outstanding teacher model of effective teaching. And outstanding teachers are those teachers that we can all remember from our own schooling, who had no discipline problems, who delivered above average outcomes, and who had children who'd go out of their way not to disappoint or let down the teacher. We've spent a long time understanding what it is that those teachers do that make them so effective. And we've discovered that what they do is learnable and therefore teachable. And so the Performance Development and Coaching program is about how do we quite systematically create the conditions for more teachers to act like those outstanding teachers over time.
So how would you describe, or what would you describe as the two main issues or the two main problems that are solved by this program at the school level?
Yeah, the two core problems we see that are the real levers of improving performance are, first of all, creating the conditions for students to learn more, to engage more in their learning. And what we found is that depends very much on how a teacher engages with, behaves with, responds to children. And the second is to raise teacher quality. So once a child is engaged, we get better outcomes if we have better teachers. And one of the things our research has shown quite clearly is that outstanding teachers learn very effectively and continuously in the classroom, but the average teacher doesn't. So one of the things that we focus on doing is getting teachers to learn in the classroom. So they are modelling learning to children as opposed to modelling teaching to children. So it seems an obvious thing to do, but it's core to this process.
So across a whole school, what are the key elements of the strategy that are used for a school?
Well, the key elements of the strategy are that teaching is a complex profession. There's 100 things I could do as a teacher. So if we want teachers to learn, we have to help them through a process of getting real clarity and commitment around what it is that they need to learn. And so that's part of the process. And once teachers have got this clarity and commitment, then the best way for them to learn is to learn from other teachers. And the best environment to see another teacher in action is in the classroom. So teachers have learning goals, teachers then observe other teachers in place, and that naturally leads over time to team teaching. So two teachers combining together, and at least one of those teachers in the classroom being there, knowing that they're there to learn from the other teacher. So that's one clear thread that runs through all of this. The second thread is that we found the most effective way to change the culture of a school, that is how adults respond to each other, how adults respond to children, is through affecting the behaviour of middle leaders particularly, but all leaders, middle leaders particularly, within a school. And we can do that by training leaders as coaches and then giving them the opportunity to practice their coaching. And what underpins coaching is the same as what underpins outstanding teachers. And that thereby middle leaders in general begin to model those behaviours outside of the coaching context. And that then shifts the culture. So the opportunities to coach actually facilitate that first process of teachers learning how to get clarity and commitment to learning goals. That process is facilitated by the coaching process. And similarly to consolidate learning, to see how well teachers have collaborated with each other, how well they've shared, then a coaching process built around that also helps. So leaders themselves have the opportunity to coach in different contexts through the year, and we found that along with the training that we give, with them being coached around feedback about how well the coaching is going, is enough to build that capacity for the culture to change over time in a school.
Performance appraisal is one of those things that schools have not done well typically. How would you see this process as completing that cycle of performance appraisal given those first threads that you just spoke about?
Well, the key to any performance improvement is to focus people's attention on what needs to change. Because if we don't pay attention to something, we can't change it. It's simple. So what we use is 360-degree feedback but progressive. So first of all, we use student feedback to teachers to focus teachers on what it is that students need to develop. And then we collect the feedback. That feedback becomes an input into a teacher's self-reflection, and that then leads to, with a coaching process, to clarity of goals. Once teachers then begin to learn from each other, we then collect feedback from peers around how well those teachers are performing as colleagues. That is, are they sharing their experiences? Are they open and approachable? Are they listening? Do they value their colleagues? All the sorts of things that we need as individuals to be good in our jobs. Then the third feedback really is around from the leadership. So leaders feeding back to teachers, are you in fact contributing to the school in the way that you need to be contributing, given your experience, your position and so on within the school? And that really then is the performance appraisal process right at the end of this piece. And with teachers knowing that all of this process is taking place and they have the opportunity to get feedback every step of the way, we're focusing their attention on what they need to focus their attention on to change, then it's a seamless process, and the final performance appraisal then is not a shock to anybody, but is a natural consequence of teachers having been in this process for a year.
Such a different process to the typical appraisal process where once a year we meet together and we talk to you about how your year's gone and what we might do next year. And everyone knows that it does nothing to create and engender change. And so the constant attention in the background and in the foreground for people clearly is a differentiation of this model.
Yeah, and I would say that the difference between the two models is the underpinning effective model of teaching, and the model that existing performance appraisal systems rest on is not an effective model of teaching, and therefore the appraisal process has become a box-ticking exercise. Whereas when you have an effective model that underpins it, and you say, well, if we do this, we will get better. If we do this, we will get better. If we do this, we will get better. Then we can build in place the feedback, the coaching, all the things that we need to do to actually drive performance, so that we do get better performance. And then a performance appraisal is about a measure of how that performance has gone.
Yeah. So next steps then, clearly this is a substantive program that does travel over 12 months with support beyond that for the next 12 months. Can a school start at any stage of the year?
Yes. Initially we thought we need to start at the beginning of the year, but it's clear now that there are two cycles that make up the program. One we call the induction cycle, and that you want to do relatively quickly, so 90 or 100 days, which in an Australian context is about a term or a little bit into the following term. So that you can do really in term 1, term 2, even term 3, but typically term 1 or term 2. And then the development cycle, which is really about us learning from each other and getting feedback on how well we are contributing to that process. That can be a term, it can be 2 terms, it can be 3 terms. So there's a lot of flexibility in that. So a school can indeed start term 1, start term 2, start towards the end of term 2, and still have an effective process happening within that academic year.
So 2012, how would a school, if they're interested, contact us, contact you in particular?
Yes, our aim is to have a cohort of schools starting in 2012, and there are a few places left on that. Schools contact us anytime over the next few months, and we'll tell them what's required, what the commitment is, and then begin the process of planning. This is a process, it's a customizable process, so it will build on what is good practice in schools now to enhance that good practice, as opposed to saying you've got to drop what you've done before and now do this. This is about making people better at what they're currently doing rather than replacing it.
And just in conclusion, this is really starting to exemplify the shift that's occurring in education, and we find more and more schools exploring this sort of process. So just as a closing comment, what would you say about the education space globally?
Yeah, that's a very good comment. That all over education there are lots of efforts, of strivings towards a new form of education. But at its very heart, the new form of education has a different set of behaviours, how a teacher responds to a child, how a teacher listens to a child. And in a sense, those are the last things to change because they are the most fundamental. So we've changed many other things, like the design of buildings, design of classrooms, design of curriculum, integrated ICT. Lots and lots of things are changing that are taking us forward. But the piece that's missing is changing the behaviour of teachers in the classroom, behaving their learning stance in the classroom, and that's really what is the core of this. We would say this is the missing piece. This is the piece that really makes that shift to a new form of education.
Thank you, John. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.